All right. Well, to all of you who popped in, I see some familiar names. I got to do a shout out, Dr. Matthew Arau. Thanks for showing up. Matthew wrote the foreword to my most recent book. Matthew, it's good to have you here.
Hey, it's great to be here. So I'm excited for your masterclass tonight. It's going to be amazing.
It's kind of an unconventional way to start, but we were having some technical difficulties. The difficulty being I couldn't figure out how to do the waiting room part, but whatever. Anyway, just really good to see you. Just for all you out there, Matthew has got some amazing stuff out here. He's part of Upbeat Leadership. He's the CEO of that, but he has been on Joey's podcast and on mine. He's just known all over the place. So we've got some awesome people here today. I'll unmute you, or I'll let you get back to whatever. I won't put you on the spot anymore, Matthew,
All
but
right.
thank you for saying hi.
Yeah, a great
Um,
time.
Thank you again for sharing this event with your circle as well.
You're welcome.
well, we are thrilled that all of y'all are here tonight, showing up probably after a long day of work or doing other things, and you're showing up for yourself and probably the folks that are in your circle as students or colleagues or whatever your connection to education or whatever it is that you're here for. So thank you. Thank you for being here and for caring enough to take the time to come and talk about and be part of a conversation that is sometimes hard. What is trauma and what do you do and how do you get over it? But um, we're going to talk about some things that my friend Joey here brings to the table. But he and I connected because he could relate to I love my job, but it's killing me. Before he's going to tell you even before what's gone on with him, and so as I'm going to let him do most of the talking tonight because he's the expert in this, and that's what we're here for tonight. So without further ado, I want you to I'll meet Dr. Joseph Weisler. I got to be working with him for the last year and a half or so, and he's put together a podcast that's catching up to mine in numbers, and he's got some great resources out there from his dissertation and some other stuff that really dives deep into this trauma piece that is unfortunately probably part of all of our daily lives, and it manifests in lots of different ways. So we're going to talk about what is it, what does it look like, what does it feel like, what can you do about it, when should you do something about it. And we're going to preface all this with we are not mental health counselors, we are not doctors, we're not offering medical advice. We're just here because we passionately care about music, or sorry, education in general, and educators and their ability to do this work that's really can weigh on us and can be hard, but oh, so important. So, Dr. Weisler, take it away.
Well, I'll joke because I am a doctor, but I can't do anything for you medically, unfortunately. Welcome to our masterclass. I'm Dr. Joey Weisler. If you're here tonight, you can call me Joey because now we're fast friends. And first of all, thank you again for taking your hour to come share with us about thinking about just the power that different mindsets can have in our classrooms. Now, I'm talking to you tonight because I'm remembering a conversation 6 years ago from this week when I was totally disillusioned with what I was doing in education. I wanted to be an educator ever since I was this tall, and I'm sitting here in the arms of my kindergarten teacher in the year 2000. And let me tell you something about this kindergarten teacher, Miss Lynch. She is somebody who was doing SEL or social and emotional learning before it was even a thing. I used to walk in the class every single day, and we would have journals, we would have prompts, we would have all these kinesthetic and movement activities with stuffed animals and music that made me fall in love with the classroom. And again, in the year 2000, that was pretty new. I come from a family of educators as well. I would love to show you one more picture of me and my late grandmother. And she is holding this plaque that now belongs in my bedroom. I was able to inherit that. And this plaque is one of her awards for just being a legacy to New York City education. Throughout her career, of about maybe 5 decades in education, she made an incredible impact with learning and students and children and adults and educators all throughout the Bronx up here in New York City, which is now where I reside. So I came from a background in the legacy of having the premise of education and knowledge and teaching in my blood and in my family. What I was not expecting is that I would hate my job and feel so disillusioned before I even started my first year of teaching. I came home in that first year, and every single day I said to my parents, I want to be doing something else with my life. I just don't know what, because this is what I thought I was good at, and this is what I thought I can do. So, my home city is from the city of Parkland, Florida. And for those of you that may remember, Parkland, Florida is home to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, my alma mater. And in 2018, there was a mass tragedy that killed 17 people and wounded 17 others at my alma mater. On that day, I was a substitute teacher at their feeder school where I was working and substituting other students, the children of other teachers, the best friends, and the family members of other people in the community. And I returned to that same school, that middle school, that feeder middle school, 6 months later, in that same calendar year to begin my first year of teaching. Gosh, and even when I think back to that first year of teaching, no educator deserves a traumatic event, but no educator also deserves a traumatic event leading up to their very first time ever running a classroom. That was really, really hard to be a part of. And I remember that when I came to become an interim teacher for that very first experience, the teacher I was subbing for said to me, "You'll never, ever forget the first time you run a classroom." And boy, was she right. What did my classrooms look like that first year? It was, quite frankly, it was chaos. It was students singing over me. I'm not saying a little background chatter. I'm saying like they were American idling over me while I'm trying to run my class. It consisted of students just being outright defiant, telling me no to my face that they didn't care in 8th grade, and using my little Zen corner, which was supposed to be a place of hope and therapy. And I use that word carefully because a classroom should not be a therapy space, but using that word to just completely disconnect and sit on their phones. And I too sometimes felt like I was a toxic teacher because at the time of that year, I didn't have the mindset that I have now. And instead of approaching the situation with, "How can I help you today and help you get better from this?" I would instead approach the conversation of, "What's wrong with you? Do I need to give you a detention?" And what I learned is that over time, I had to switch my mindset. It was towards the end of my first year where my leadership came into my room to give me some guidance. And their guidance was, "You need to do da 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 da." And it was all these different strategies that I had already tried and had failed at. And they said to me, "You just might not be cut out for this job." And I said to them, "Really? You think so? Because I'm disillusioned by the teacher that I am today at your school." Didn't help when it was time to renew my contract, but I said that through their face. So they knew how I felt, that I was miserable in the job that I always wanted to have. So I want to pause for a second here, and I want us to use our Q&A chat. And in our chat, I want you to think about what is currently disillusioning you in education right now. Let's go ahead and add that question here. So in our Q&A, what is something that is disillusioning you in education currently? We'll go ahead and give our attendees a few moments to respond to that in our chat or in our Q&A box. We'd like to read some of your answers out loud.
Can you give a specific example of
Oh,
your
absolutely.
disillusion? Yeah, that might help prompt some things.
Even now, even with my mindset. So I joke, like I'll call my parents every night and be like, "Oh, this happened and it was horrible." But what I tend to forget is that I'm really focusing on the 10% that still get me down. The masterclass we're talking about tonight is not foolproof. You're not going to walk in there tomorrow and reach every single student. That's just not the case. But what it does do is it will definitely, hopefully, and for sure increase your numbers. So you have a much better response than what you may currently have as well. That 10% still gets me every single time, but it's better than 60%, which it once was. So my numbers of engagement are a lot more. One thing that I still face now is a lot of resistance from students, meaning that that 10% will still come to their writing class and not write their papers. They'll still come to their literature class and not read the books. They'll still come to their public speaking class and not be ready to give a speech. So the resistance is something that I still face as well. What have you noticed has been disillusioning you in education? Mm. So Dr. Wolfstorff, welcome, says that teachers speaking negatively about students. Right. and just having a teacher's mindset become the true problem of what they're working on around them. What else do we find to be disillusioning us?
There's a few more above that, Joey.
Oh,
If you scroll
oh
down.
yes, Eleni, yes. AI overpowering students, absolutely. Isn't that so crushing, Eleni, when you see a student do an AI speech outline, because Eleni is a public speaking educator, right? And that also shows in the authenticity of how students actually deliver back to us. Administrative micromanagement from Dawn, absolutely. And part of the mindset we'll be talking about tonight is making us also realize how lucky we can become when admin sees our train of thinking that shows that we're happy to work alongside them, not under them as well. We also have Matthew that says the overburden of responsibilities without support. Absolutely. So all of these are things that are disillusioning us in education. And I want to go ahead and also pause to define what exactly trauma also is. So Dr. Wolfsdorf actually wrote an entire book about this. But in truth, trauma is something that does not have to take place on the battlefield anymore. There is a theory that came about in the 70s that says you do not have to be in the army or in war to experience trauma. It could happen right here in our classrooms. And quite frankly, as we've seen, coming from Parkland, I can say so, war has followed us into our classrooms. So trauma is any sort of reaction that we get from our experiences that lives in our nervous systems. That's trauma. It's something that lives in our nervous systems that we don't know how to get out. Well, how does it come out? I'll tell you that in that first year, my trauma came out by snoozing my alarm 5 times. And those 5 times were 10 minutes apart each. So I had to set my alarm an hour early every single day just to get up on time. I would look lost when I got to school. Like, I even had a colleague come to me one time. And he's like, "Are you okay? You're just walking around the halls aimlessly." No, I'm just trying to find my classroom after lunch. It's all good. It's a matter of just looking scared, coming home, not knowing what mood you would be in, and neglecting everything else to finish a job that would never be done. There are some days where I would lock my classroom after school and I would spike my lantern on the ground like a football and just sit under my Zen area and sob because I just lost my purpose. I thought, why am I doing this? Why is this job something that I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing? So that's how my trauma was released. For my students, it was a matter of, again, their defiance, their sleeping, walking around the classroom aimlessly. And in that opening year, before I approached the mindset of how can I help this student, I would instead say, "You're off task. Why don't I give you a detention to help maybe solve the problem?" And when you approach the student from the standpoint of how can I help you versus what do you need, you're going to change the whole conversation that way. So I want to also ask, what are some ways that your trauma also comes out? Do you also snooze the alarm? Do you come in with an upset stomach sometimes? What does your trauma look like for you?
Are you asking people to put that in the
In the chat for us,
chat?
please.
Yeah. I know I had an experience this year or last year in the November timeframe. I teach middle school band and fifth row back, as we're just starting one of the, I think it was Mary Had a Little Lamb or whatever in the beginning band book. And we start that and I look and in the fifth row, I see two boys with their hands and in holding a gun. And it turns out it was a fake gun, but there was about 30 seconds while I'm conducting Mary Had a Little Lamb where my mind is thinking, what are my responsibilities? Who do I protect first? How do I get to the back of the room when all the kids were, it was, I didn't realize how traumatic it was until the next day when I went to walk in the building. And as I opened the front door, I started sobbing and shaking. My body could not go in that building for days. I did not go to school the rest of that week and then went back the following Monday and was really struggling. But it was that whole thing you're talking about, it lives in the nervous system. So as people think about that, it may not always be that dramatic. Like Paul says, brain fog. I have brain fog a lot too. But yeah, trauma can exacerbate it. I'll let you continue, Joy. I have to let my dog out because this is the time. So you continue. I'm going to run away.
Yeah, so Dr. Wolfsdorf also says that it's the case when we feel powerfully triggered. It's the brain fog, as Paul also says. Eleni says it's the sensitivity as a result of maybe sounds we may have heard from a traumatic event. It's also that sense of apathy or as we call it, that compassion fatigue, when we no longer feel like we are fully able to help our students to the best that we can, and that affects our daily performance. Like we said, as Dawn also said, the inability to complete a certain task. Absolutely. So we're having a pretty good sense as to what trauma actually looks like and how it exists in us. So 6 years ago, I was in that place where I said to my leadership team, I wanted to do this job since I was 5 years old, and I don't know if I can keep doing it. And I actually met Leslie at around that time, where I was reading her I Love My Job, but It's Killing Me book as part of my doctoral research. And I had a chance to reach out to her and say, I feel what you felt, and I think we should talk about it. So, starting conversations is one of the first ways that I found a way to move about this. So, I think now that we have a good idea as to what trauma is and how it affects us, the next question I want to think about is how do we do it? So, let me fast forward 6 more years. I just graduated with my PhD in May. Now, the point of this webinar is not to say that doing a PhD will solve your traumatic crises. That is quite far from it. And I have friends that register for this event that would tell me quite the opposite. So what I did do is that I got my PhD in English, and the focus with my degree was on trauma studies. I will say that doing a 300-page dissertation, 300 pages that were published, there are probably about 800 pages that did not even make it anywhere close to being in that final book. But by working towards that dissertation, I had an opportunity every single time I wrote to tell my truth and to get my story straight. I could sit here and tell you that I was a toxic teacher that first year, but guess what? Before I signed on to this call, I pulled out a notebook in my corner and I was looking at an email that a student had sent me. Actually, I lied, that 3 students had sent to me on the same day. It was December 31st, this past year. Students who I taught when they were 13 are all turning 20 this year. They wrote to me 8 months ago, no, 10 months ago, almost 11, and said, Mr. Weiser, we're still thinking about you. Happy New Year. You've made such a difference in our lives. And we're in college and we still remember you. One student actually said, you were my substitute interim teacher. I don't remember the names of my real teachers, but I remember yours because your class did something for me. I just reread that note about 45 minutes ago. So I could say I was toxic, but we're going to talk tonight about what it means to actually tell your truth and have your stories. My aunt who survived 9/11, her and my uncle survived 9/11, they said, when something happens, write it down and put it away. And just even if you never read it again, just know that's there. Just know that your truth is there. So that's my truth, that even at that time, I meant something to those students, and you mean something to your students too. And the reason why you're here tonight is because you know that. You're here because you know you mean something. And you know that with a few different mindset strategies, you can take that even further. So thank you again for being with us. So what happened in that first year of teaching was that I realized that I had a lot of beef with my elementary school teacher. She did so well in the classroom, and I was struggling so bad. So I went back to her. Here's a picture of us now in 2019. I'm a little bit taller in this picture than I was the first time. I went back to her 19, 20 years later, and I said, oops. I said, Miss Lynch, how did you do it? How did you make me love the classroom with all the movement, all the kinesthetics, and doing everything that has made education amazing? What did you do that made it rock? And her answer was 2 things. She had a secret sauce. She said the first thing that she did was that she went in every single day knowing that she was going to have the best time. And the second thing that she did is that she says she taught to the heart. She says she taught the heart over the brain. And that really stuck with me in saying that she taught to the heart. And that's going to be our mindset for tonight. She fed me this mindset of teaching our students to the heart. And I'm here today to show you the mindset that I thought about after meeting with my teacher, my kindergarten teacher, and speaking with Leslie for the year and a half that we've been collaborators and offering tools to get our educators to continue teaching from the heart. Okay, stand by for a quick transition here. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and show you one of my visuals. And what you're going to see in this visual is an acronym to our heart method. So when we teach from the heart, The H in our heart stands for our habits. So let me tell you a little bit about the classroom that I run now. Again, I've already told you what it looks like in 2018. Students yelling, students crying, me only feeling as happy as my most miserable student because I had two speeds of students that year. I had students who were reading on elementary school levels, I'm talking first grade, in my eighth grade classroom. And my leadership came to me and said, you got to figure this out. You got to work with them somehow. You got to get them up to eighth grade. And I had no tools other than the iReady software. How many of us are working with iReady? Other than iReady to help them. I was honestly very ill-equipped. So I had that speed. And my other speed were my high achieving students. I taught a very split schedule, 3 and 3. And for my high achieving students, those students were so entitled that they were always competing with each other to try and do better. What they didn't realize through that entitlement was how much they were hurting personally. Those students were dealing with their grief in other ways, such as feelings of suicidal ideation, depression. I even had a student come in to class one day and she dropped a suicide note right on my desk and said, "This is what I wanted to submit to you for today's paper." I didn't know what to do with that because I didn't have the tools to feel equipped. Not only did I not feel equipped, but then the student also said, the social worker won't be here to help us. She never does. So how are you going to help us? You told us that you came from Parkland. How can you help? And that put me also in a very precarious place in knowing that I was being asked to work with tools that I didn't have to create a space for students that I didn't know was going to be secure enough to help them succeed. And that's why I had to go away and make the heart mindset. Now, in 2025, I'm teaching 10 classes, and my classes look like a very robust space for students to contribute and think. I can walk into a class and be assured that even if my students haven't prepared with the material to read, they at least know enough to engage and think. In my literature classes that have about 20 students, they are there to critically engage. I'll have about maybe 15%, or not 15%, 15 students, that's a little bit more than 15%, roughly 15 or 16 students, so that's about 80%, that are there to answer questions, do so with thought, do so with merit, and the way that they respond to my questions is through however they choose, rather they're writing their work or talking through their work, and then going away to prepare for the next opportunity. And a student just said to me in the conference that we had last week, he said, I know that I never talk in your class, but you still provide me a space to have options. You provide me a space to have flexibility. And when you come in and ask if we've read and none of us say that we did, you don't say gotcha. You say, okay, how can we retailor today's conversation to help you out? And when I'm flexible, that gets everyone in the room engaged somehow, no matter what they've done for me. So the heart mindset looks like this, because again, when we feel our hearts take action. The H in the habits, in the heart mindset begins with our habits. It's about grounding ourselves. I come into class and I seat my student in the circle. The circle is validating. Everybody can see each other. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has a place. The circle is there for students to speak on their own terms, meaning that the course is flexible, but it's also inviting and offering choice where students can speak if they want, or they can be quiet and listen and write things out as they see better fit for them. When I have flexibility and choice as my first offering, the E in heart stands for engagement, meaning students feel safer to engage when I no longer come in and say, hey, this classroom's a safe space. I don't do that anymore. I had a teacher in grad school that came in and said on day one, this classroom's a safe space. And my gut reaction as her student was, wow, okay. So then if this classroom is a safe space, how vulnerable do I have to be in this class to do well? And I felt like I was going to be graded on my vulnerability. So I took that out of my language. What I've done instead is that I walk into class with invitational language. Invitational language sounds something like, hey, welcome to class. You have options today. You are going to sit in the circle. That's non-negotiable. You will sit in the circle, but from there, you are invited to speak in the conversation, or you're invited to write about it later. I never tell them that they have homework. That's my trick. I say, if you don't talk about it today, you can do what's called the written alternative, where you then do the writing assignment that goes with it. And if you talk, you're exempt. You don't have to go home and write anything. You can just celebrate the fact that you participated today, and good for you. You're going to go home today and see 10 out of 10 in the gradebook for today's discussion. So they have flexibility and choice, and they're able to engage through that invitational language. Again, we don't have safe spaces. What we do have are safe connections. The circle is built as a safe connection. We have safe moments where students can say something that lets others resonate. Like even here, I asked, what is disillusionment? That could have been a really hard question for some participants. But when some start to speak, others say, okay, I feel validated enough to share my thoughts too. That's a safe moment. And that's what our classrooms can look like. And it can also look like safe conversations in the same pathway, where you have moments in conversations that make spaces for that sense of safety. So then the A stands for awareness. And I was just reflecting through the notes that students gave as to how our projects have really helped them feel like they have a voice in the world. So my favorite film of all time is Pay It Forward, which is one of the best films in the year 2000. And Pay It Forward is Helen Hunt from Mad About You, playing opposite of Kevin Spacey. And really what the film is about is Kevin Spacey as a seventh grade geography teacher. He says to his students, plain as day, get out there and change the world. It was so simple until Trevor, who was the main student in the film, brings a homeless man to his house. And he says, Mom, I'm changing the world by giving this homeless man a place to sleep. And the mom was like, who told you you could do this? And that becomes the whole to do with the plot. But awareness from my class is kind of that same project. And what a coincidence that I actually show that film at the end of every semester, knowing that it had nothing to do with me actually designing this project. The project that I use every term in my literature class is called Your Voice, Your Change. And Your Voice, Your Change is where I say to the students pretty much that. I say to them, you are aware that there are communities out there that you want to learn more about. And even this semester, I have a student who's looking at addiction and recovery, or usage rather. I have another student looking at animal testing and animal cruelty and how cosmetics play a role in that. I have many students at the Fashion Institute of Technology looking at fast fashion and having clean products. And the purpose of Your Voice, Your Change is to say to students, think about a community where you think your voice can make a difference, and then spend the next 16 weeks trying to get involved and writing about it all semester long through a 4-part paper that shows how you can get involved with that community somehow. And awareness is where we say, yes, our voices do belong. This does matter. And it helps students think about the why does this matter or why should this matter factor, which then helps them think about resilience in terms of they're not going to remember the discussions that we have on The Giver by Lewis Lowry, my favorite book. I don't know if it's theirs, but they won't remember everything about it. What they will remember are, again, those safe moments, those safe connections, those safe conversations where they can say, hey, this made me think about something else in the outside world. This made me think about empathy, a big theme in stories as an English professor, and how that draws back to the project that I want to achieve for this class. And then the T in HEART stands for telling our stories, sharing our truths. And again, we need to offer students a platform to set their records straight. And when students have a space to explore their truth, explore their whole being, come to the classroom as whole and enough as they are, they'll set their truth straight, and you can help them tell their story. So that's my HEART method. And I think as educators, one thing that we need to be aware of or just be mindful of is knowing that we are whole and enough as we are. Our whole beings and our whole authentic mindsets are enough as they are. And I know my imposter syndrome, even now, is not always the best. And I'll still call my parents at night and say, ugh, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this job. We are. We are. We are whole and enough as we are. And the HEART mindset is something that still will help us improve the way that we approach ourselves and our students. So I want to go ahead and turn back to our chat for a moment here. And I want to ask the question, if you were to see your dream come true as an educator, what would that look like? What is your dream come true as an educator? Let's type that into our chat. And I'll tell you mine first. My dream come true as an educator is knowing that I've been using my heart mindset. So unlike 2019, that first year, I can come to the classroom now, waking up at my first alarm, not my sixth. I'm excited to see my students. I show tons of gratitude. I thank my students every day for coming in. I say good morning 10 times, which annoys them, but I'm really happy to do it. I'm happy to annoy them too. That's another perk of it. And it gives me this opportunity to show presence and have peace. With my heart mindset, I've held on to my peace as an educator. And I go home at night focused on the things I love to do versus are my students going to be okay? Because now I know that they will. What would your dream come true look like? Let's turn to our chat and see.
Fun fact, I just made the chat workable, I think.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
feel free to use the chat or the Q&A because I got two screens, people, I can monitor. So dream job. Is anybody in their dream job right now as an educator? Maybe.
Maybe. We're getting there. With the heart mindset, we can get there. What would your Thursday night look like if you were able to achieve your dream come true? Helping others. Thank you for that, Paul.
That's Paul. He's always out there. Yep. He's walking the walk.
Students engaged to learn, as Matthew says. Absolutely.
Not afraid to take risks and fail. Did you see that Matthew put that too? That's a
Yes.
space. Yeah, that's really important here.
Having empathy and integrity. The process of adding meaning to students' lives. Well, Dr. Wolstorff, you're already doing that. Less stress to focus on students. Absolutely, Olivia. Helping students believe in themselves. Definitely. So here's the truth. For those of you in here that might not be English educators or humanities instructors, I know a lot of us here from our circles are humanities-based educators. And for those of us that are not, we might have some science and math teachers thinking, well, that's great, but how does a class like mine play into the touchy-feely, right? And here's the truth. I went back to my parents that first year. I lived with them, so that was very easy to do. But I went back to them that first year, and I just remember one night, it was the middle of October, and I just said to them, I reached my rock bottom. I cannot do this job. This is not what I thought I was signing up for. And with their wonderful wisdom, they said to me, listen, your community just had a mass shooting 8 months ago. Those students are not going to remember the content that you teach them day after day in 5 years from now. What they will remember is that you're there, you show up, you're there every day, and you try your best to show presence for them. They're going to remember that you cared about them. And sure enough, that email that I got on New Year's Eve this year, 6 years, not even 5, now we're looking at 6 years, it was a student who said to me, hey, I remember that he was actually watching the film that I had made about teaching their class. He just watched it. It was published on YouTube. It was a scripted drama that I made. He watched it and he emailed me and said, Mr. Weiser, all of the times that we shared in class together just came flooding back to me. And I remember he didn't say a thing about what he taught. He didn't remember that we did Edgar Allan Poe, which is fine. But he did say, I remember that you came in there and you changed our lives just by being there to listen to us. That's what he remembered. I remembered yelling at them, but he remembered that I was there to be present. So that's the difference. And by being here, you're showing that you have the commitment to continuing to get your record straight, tell your story, and make it an even better experience than it already is for your students. So that's our dream come true as well. What would you physically feel if you had your dream come true? I can say it's, again, jumping up at that first alarm, thanking my students for coming. What brings you joy by being in your classrooms? And how can you continue to expand on that further? Let's type that here in our chat. What brings you joy?
I thought you were Matthew talking there for a minute about getting to jump out of bed, all those things.
Yes,
Yeah,
because I get to go to work every day.
right. I'll tell you, watching kids, I teach middle school band now. I taught high school for 35 years. Now I do middle school. And watching young kids as we build community. We did some activities today in my class where they had to more, like get to know each other activities so that we can build a place where they feel safe playing instruments and doing all those things together. And that brings me such joy to watch kids that come in just either afraid of like this big class with 65 kids in it, not sure what to do, and then to just sort of see this community developing as they get to learn to trust each other and make great memories there. Oh, look at all your stuff in there in the chat. We got lots of people experiencing joy. Students helping students math, yeah.
Eleni says having learning being fun, and Eleni and I kind of know because a lot of our activities come from the same person. Shout out to Cindy. So absolutely. Matthew says that it's about students helping students, yep, and bringing the joy into class. Dr. Wolfstor says it's teaching literature. And Eleni also says yes for things such as dancing, which having students laugh is not common in college. I just had a student write in her journal. She says, I love your class because it's so random. And what she means is that I walked in last week, and this is a Cindy activity, Eleni. I walked in last week and I hand them a bunch of clothespins. And I say, throw these clothespins on each other and don't even look at what they say. They all have writing on them, but throw them on each other and see what happens. It was to talk about the power of labels. They all had some really weird things in them, like tissue box, snothead, and really weird things to talk about how we feel when people actually label us. And one student wrote in their journal, they're like, I was not expecting that. This class is random as always, and I love it for that. So yes, seeing college students laugh and giggle is one of my favorite things. Building community, I love that. And having students sit in the circle, as Dr. Wolstorff and I talked about in our podcast last December. Having students sit in the circle is one of the best ways to build a community. I had a student come to me about a year ago, and she said, I loved the English class I was in right before yours, except for one little thing. I hated talking to somebody's neck the whole semester. And she says, when I came to your class, I didn't have to talk to somebody's neck. I got to talk to their face because I was seated in the circle. I wasn't sitting behind anyone. And that feedback was pretty meaningful to say, facial feedback does allow for validation. And even today, Dr. Wolfstorff, I was showing a conversation to my classes about Columbine, featuring Paula Reed, who was an English dean over there for 30 years. And she too says that stories and literature or bridge our emotions such as empathy. And it offers this toolkit to help students feel safe for now and know how to navigate their everyday lives. Paul says helping students cope, absolutely, and find their grounding before, and during, and after stress, absolutely. So, Leslie, what else can we say at the moment about our dream come true?
I feel like I'm living it now. Now I'm not doing like a personal commercial here, but listen, I went from loving my job, but it's killing me to writing a book that came out last month called The Balanced Band Director. And it brings me, if we're talking about joy, being in a place, honestly, for the first time in a long time where there's joy in my classroom, and I found a balance, and I found a way to. I have administrators that support what I'm doing. When I deal with like the traumatic situations I have or things that are hard, having those support people and close friends available has made it good. I'm not sure if that's really what we're talking about right now, Joey. It's
It
the
is.
end of workday.
It,
Is so, but anyway, is that what we were getting at? Is this sort of
yeah,
wrapping that
yeah,
piece
just
up?
absolutely. And having a sense of joy in what we do. So I'll mention this. Again, I started off as an educator who was sitting in the core of my classroom most days, sobbing, thinking, why did I choose this job? And I thought the more I did, the better it would get. As in, I would stay in my room until 9 o'clock every single night to try and get that job done. That worked against me in two ways. The first thing it worked against me is that I never got the job done. There was always more to do. And at 8:57, I'm like, huh, well, I still want to do A, B, C, D, E. And it's like the harder I tried, the more there was to do. And step two, admin is like, why is he in the room until he's like, oh, hi Cindy. Like, why is this person in the room or in the building until 9 o'clock every night? So that was another issue and another concern. But now fasting forwards from that, I'm able to balance 10 classes. I'm excited to do that. And one of my favorite things to do is to just welcome students all the time and let them know that they're here, they're cared for. And students will say all the time, they said, it's great to have a professor that really does care about us. So what I wanted to do to wrap up is mention that I have currently worked to publish my dissertation. I had a 300-page dissertation that was published. And in that dissertation, what I had was a series of chapters that followed a sense of a recipe. in this recipe, I've been offering a bunch of different strategies and tools that have made navigating trauma in the classroom that much easier. And what I wanted to do is show you where you can find that for those that might be interested, because here's the thing, we don't have to handle our trauma by ourselves. The thing with navigating our trauma is that we don't understand how trauma really works because trauma on individual levels is not observed often enough. We often see it on a much grander scale, especially after tragedy. So nobody taught me the skills to navigating trauma. I had to learn about it. I had to explore it. I had to read about it. And then my dissertation was a place to write about it. And all of my secrets are in this package here in my own dissertation. Once I had my 300-page dissertation, I said, there's nothing more than I would want to do with this than to give it purpose and to help other people as well. And I decided to go away and make a 12-page handout called the Emotionally Equipped Educator. And that emotionally equipped educator is available here on this QR code. And this emotionally equipped educator will give all of our participants and our attendees a space to just understand how trauma works, why it works, what it looks like, how it shows up. And once we see how it shows up, we can understand how to make it better, to come forward and teach with our hearts. The truth is that I never knew that I would persevere again after my first year of teaching. I said, that's it. I need to find something else and repivot my entire direction. But once I started to have other opportunity in working in classrooms again, I learned that perseverance is always a possibility with that. So thank you for joining us, and I'd love to take some questions to see how I can continue to offer purpose and give you your chance to persevere. So let me go ahead and unshare my screen. I'll leave this up for a few more moments here for those that might want to capture our QR code. But I also want to ask, what questions do we have tonight about ways to just continue bringing positivity into our classrooms and creating that space for us? Let me go ahead and unshare my screen because I want to see
Maybe if people are taking a few minutes here to think or to type something up, do you want to share about the directory you're putting together? And I can put that
Yes,
link.
thank you so
I'll
much for
go ahead
that.
and do that. That gives some think time for folks. I'll put the link there if you want to explain it, I put the link in the chat.
Absolutely. So also for coming in tonight, we want to make sure that you all have an opportunity to network amongst each other. So Leslie and I are putting a directory into our chat that we would love for you to add your name, your occupation, and different ways that we can publicly continue to build a network. And for those that have been in my podcast, there are several of you here that know that I do this. I always love to build bridges. What continues to offer me a sense of great purpose is building those bridges, bridging those connections. There are so many people where all they have to do is say one or two buzzwords. I'm like, oh, go talk to Adam. Oh, go talk to Matthew. And I'm constantly sending people their way. And I thought, what if I can build a bridge where everybody can be sent to everybody's way and not have to make me become the middle channel to that? So yes, Joey is a great networker. Thank you for that. Absolutely. So with our directory that Leslie will put into our chat for us, this will be a space for us to continue collaborating with each other because together we rise. And looking at some of our prompts over here, why do many educators think about trauma? Okay, so Adam, I'm going to use your words right back on you. In your book, Dr. Wolfsdorf, you talk about a paradox, and I bring this up in my classes a lot. Dr. Wolfsdorf is like my ventriloquist now when I teach my classes. And Dr. Wolfsdorf said in his book, Navigating Trauma in the English Space, he says, trauma happens so often out there, yet it becomes uncomfortable to talk about it in here. So we run into this situation, and Paula Reed talks about this as well in her Columbine-based interview with me. She says, there's a lot of teachers who just don't feel equipped to talk about trauma. And there's a place for talking about symbolism, talking about the author's purpose. And the truth is that also, as Dr. Wolstorf would say, not every teacher would want a student who's there to be someone to build a partnership with. Some students just want to be left alone. So I think some teachers choose to prevent speaking about that because it's safe, it's comfortable. And there is a place for that too. You are respected for whatever approach that you take. For those that are comfortable bringing that paradox of what happens out there into the classroom, who are comfortable to do that, we can. And Adam, you too, you also say that to think of our histories, our legacies, and our stories as something other than traumatic is kind of missing the point. So I think for teachers that are able to take on that conversation, it works. So
Hey, Joey. Sorry I joined late. I got caught up in another event or something that I was doing. Did you address at all how teachers, and might not have, but how teachers cause the trauma, like how teachers can be pivotal in causing trauma, say, because I'm in public speaking, and teachers that are critical or punitive and then cause the student to then become very traumatized over not being a successful student. Did you address anything like that?
there is a situation that we can find ourselves in called rupture and repair. Bruce Perry actually talks about this. And with rupture and repair, sometimes we cause damage without even knowing it. I actually had a student that was in that first year class that I've never heard from again for obvious reasons for that sense. He wrote in his end of the year letter. I actually had students, and I knew never to do this again. I said to them, write a letter to a future student in my class. In truth, I'll never make it to them, but I said, I'm going to let them know everything you want them to know about this class. That student wrote in their letter, for whatever reasons, they were not specific, but they said, this class made me cry every single day before it actually began. Don't know why, but I knew not to give that letter out to another student on the first day of school. We can unfortunately rupture students all the time and not even know, but continuing to combat with that question, hey, are you okay? Can I help you? And forming the bridge to repair is the way to reestablish that relationship. Again, putting care and putting presence at the forefront. When I used to see students nodding off in class in my first year, I slam my fist on their desk and yell at them. Now I either leave them alone or at the end of class, I say, hey, I noticed your behavior was a little bit different today. Can I help you with anything? Do you need an extension on your paper? Is there something that I can offer you within my academic space to help improve whatever your situation is? And when it comes to causing the trauma, the truth is we won't know when that happens all the time, but we can fix it by being graceful, showing grace, offering grace, and forgiveness as well.
Agreed.
Yes. So, Matthew, you're talking about strategies in coping with trauma for students and teachers. One of the things that I do, and I'll chuckle because even now in year 7, when I'm teaching 10 classes of mostly freshmen in college, they'll tee-hee, they'll ho-ho, they'll ha-ha. I think it's the classical music that takes them for a loop every time. One of the ways that I work to combat trauma is that I do a 90-second meditation with the students. And we can even try that now for not all 90 seconds, but to show you how it works. I have them put out the palm of their hand, take their pointer finger, and take a great big inhale and trace the finger up. And exhale and trace the finger down. And I have them do that process. Inhale, trace up, exhale, trace down through all 5 fingers. It works. Again, they chuckle when I turn on classical music, but on days where we don't do it, like Dr. Weisler, why didn't we meditate today? We could have used it. So the strategies that they're looking for, or rather that we can offer, can really help them. And I even tell them before you present, before you speak, before you deliver, ground yourself. Take a few deep breaths. I hope that answered your question, Matthew. What other questions can we respond to at the moment? Well, for one of our major takeaways for tonight, I always like to have my students think about a major takeaway before they leave a space. I want your takeaway to be that you are whole and enough as you are as an educator. But something else that can continue to improve yourself is by showing up with your whole heart. If you go in to teach the child's brain, that's part of the job, but that job will be incomplete. It's showing up with your whole heart to help the child be reached at theirs. And again, my secret sauce can be found in my equipped educators toolkits, which I'll leave the QR code one more time up here. And just know that I would love to be someone that can continue to be in touch with you and help you reach your goals and persevere as the educators that you are. So on the behalf of Leslie and myself, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, thanks everybody for showing up. Take advantage of the that link I put in there earlier about networking here, just because Joey knows people, and if you are comfortable being part of that, yeah, you won't be sorry because he's introduced me to some pretty awesome people. Thank you to all of you for the work you do out there, however you're impacting people. You're obviously someone who cares about how other people are impacted, and you're building communities wherever you are. So thank you for the hard work you do. May the holidays bring you whatever you want them to bring you. Relaxation, excitement, whatever it is you want. And we'll be sending out a recording of this if you want it, and we'll have the links included. And Joey, somebody asked, is somebody able to resend the link? Oh yeah, I can pop that in there now. I got it. The link's not in the chat, Matthew. I failed you all. Uh-oh, hold on. Don't go away till you get it, you guys. I had one job. Joey gave me so much responsibility. Apparently I can't do that. Okay, we're gonna try it one more time. Oh, you know what? Probably because I put it to hosts and panelists. Oops. There you
There we
go.
go.
Joey and I didn't need the link. I forgot to share it with everyone.
So
I taught
once
middle
this
school all day, so forgive me.
once you have your name into this link, what it will do is it will allow me to continue to explore who you are, what you're doing, and some of your different needs. And then from there, this will become a public forum for everyone who attended tonight to get to know more about each other. And I can tell you that there are some of you that I'm meeting for the first time. It is such a privilege to be in your network. Thank you for including me. And there are those that have been in my network from the very beginning. Cindy has known me, who's under my name, because I think I sent her my panelist link, which is why she also says Dr. Joy Weisler. Cindy has known me since I was 18 years old. So there are some folks in here that have gone back and back and back. And my goal is just let you all know each other, because again, when we build bridges, we rise. So thank you for including yourselves in that as well.
Good night, everybody.
And I thank you for joining us.
Thank you.